Here you are again, prepared to turn the page. You know the risk and know the danger. Let us begin.
Ancient beings made the room from unhewn rock and small glints of distant firelight, cast flickering shadows on the ceiling high above him. Quinn flinched as though at first he thought he was back in the Quinn Vinrima's cave in Peru. I watched a shudder slip down his spine. But at his second look he saw that there was much more to my chamber. Dark celestial beings had built it for me to use as I needed. They had cut steps into the stone, working its way down to a pool in the center of the room. Massive stone pillars held the ceiling aloft. Away in the distance I had my tables, illuminated by eternal fires, as a source of the dim light. Quinn seemed intrigued by my workspace, covered in scrolls and books and tablets. The place's silence was so absolute I could feel the whisper of the air itself pressing in on my visitor, and I could hear Quinn's pulse echo through the cavernous chamber. Finally, Quinn's eyes met mine, standing near the edge of the pool. Our gaze locked, and I turned to face him fully. There. You're awake. I think it is past time for us to meet. We have much to discuss, I told him. Quinn didn't have an immediate reaction, but slowly, and without taking his eyes off me, he stood and stepped back. What are you? He asked. I was impressed with his resolve and curious as to how he had somehow survived not one, but two interactions with the words. He looked like a broken shell of the man I witnessed in the Peruvian rainforest. His will seemed shattered in 1,000 pieces, and his soul held on with the smallest strand. I am the archivist. He blanched backwards at my words. The force of my speech did not have the effect it held over most mortals. It was something else. I waited for him to recover before I continued. The force of my language is too much for you? I asked. Quinn shook his head. I can feel it in my head as much as my ears. It's like an earthquake, he said. I have heard of you. This gave me pause. There were quite a few alive who knew of my existence. Quinn was a curious creature, to be sure. If it were another time, perhaps more analysis would be prescribed. Time was not, however, on my side. It is time we spoke about why you are still alive, I said. You saved me? He asked. His voice only quivered in the slightest, and I made note of it in a small journal I had at my side. Everything must be seen and dissected to better understand the enemy. I did not, and the book was a trap set for me. It was designed by a hidden being to destroy me. How is it you are still alive? Quinn shrugged and held up his hands. There, glinting in the soft light, I caught the dark green of a jade ring. Where did you get that ring? I asked. The man looked down at his right hand. This? I picked it up in Petiti. It stopped he trailed off. I nodded at him and stepped closer. The Chthonic wanted to consume you, but the ring held it at bay. Interesting, I murmured. What? Why is that interesting? Quinn asked. The Quinn Vinrima has used that ring for 1,000 years to keep its power bound to mortals while it tries to increase its influence. Most succumb to it, but maybe the beast had learned patience. Since you were still alive after your encounter in Peru, I assumed it had taken its ring back. It is unfortunate for the beast that you then found the book. Otherwise it may have yet succeeded in escaping its prison. Quinn blanched again at my words. His eyebrows shot up and he shook his head. I have so many questions to what you just said, I don't even know where to start. I waved a hand at him. We will have time enough for that shortly, I said. There was little time, but this meeting was a shifting of the balance. I had to see it through. Let us first talk about the book. I don't know anything about it. It spoke to me, but I don't understand. We are a reality at war. Always the enemy seeks to break past our bastion. That book was from another reality. It was a relic crossed over from a place where the enemy had already conquered. It is hard to describe cosmic time on a scale for one whose line is so brief. But imagine the beginning of everything. When this reality winked into existence, the enemy was already there on the outside. We were the invaders, and it sought to destroy us. The cosmic beings, strong as they were, could not stop this enemy, and thus formed a perimeter from the unmaking. They called it the Malice Bastion. It is a mantle held by the very strongest of us all, and built to be the antithesis of our enemy. Quinn sat on one of the stones at the edge of the pool, staring off into the darkened depths. "What does that have to do with the ring?" he asked. "It is important for you to know the history, so as to better understand your place in it. Jade is not natural to our reality. It is from a neighboring world, the same one whose book you found. All of the jade in our world has leaked in through cracks from outside our existence, cracks the Malice Bastion should have been able to seal. Through a millennium of research, I have found jade acts as a conductor for the mantle of power. You have taken some from the Quinvin Rima, and now obtain much more by absorbing the words of the book. I suspect it is why you were able to perceive me and retain your sanity." "Why doesn't the Malice reseal the cracks then?" Quinn asked. I nodded to let him know he was on the right track. It had been so long since I had explained myself. In the time between the beginning and the creation of the Melusai, a sliver of the enemy infiltrated our world. If the enemy and the Melusai are evenly matched, this sliver provides the advantage. It has destroyed more beings than can be counted, and it seeks to break the Bastion's mantle. There are few entities left with the strength to carry the Melusai's burden. The enemy is near at hand. Quinn frowned, and I saw his face reflected up in the still waters. "So what can we do?" "You're talking about the apocalypse. You keep saying the enemy, but you don't name them." "Its name carries weight and power. Both would lend themselves towards its goal. I will not speak its name, but you may consider it entropy, if that makes it easier to comprehend." I stepped around him and over to one of my desks. I picked up a piece of paper and handed it to him. "We do not know the name of its sliver, which has tilted the balance against us. It hides well and is quick. We only know that it can move between realities, and thus we cannot track it, bound as we are to our own existence." "So you're saying there's a gigantic cosmic equation, and this sliver is giving entropy enough of a foothold to tip us over?" I clasped my hands together, and my robes fluttered slightly in an invisible breeze. "Exactly," I said. "Well, then go find the sliver," Quinn said. "I cannot locate it or determine what it is," I repeated. "Well, then I'll give it a try," Quinn answered, standing and facing me. "Where do I start looking?" If I were a being less detached from emotion, I would have smiled. If I could have smiled. Beaks do not belie emotion well. I was hoping you would say that. And thus, the story is ended. The tale told. The chapter closed.
Mortis Maledictum is brought to you by the Melusai. Written by Devin McCamey. Narrated by Jeremiah John. Additional voice acting by Viddy St. Martin. Sound design by Lawrence Lyons. And original artwork by Brandon McCamey. Thank you for listening.